Hey there, welcome to episode 70 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at around noon on Friday, June 28th, 2024. Today we're going to talk about co-creation in the fun economy, although it will not be limited to the fun economy, but the fun economy reigns here in Greater Vegas. Hopefully wherever you found your favorite podcast, your favorite audio program, you're able to find the episode description, which contains our show notes. The show notes include a couple of links. I count 3 show-related links, plus the 2 shameless self-promotion links, of course. The summary of the show, which I will read shortly. And I have my notes. If at some point I actually have the time to sort of rejigger, that means you adjust, tune, redesign, whatever it is, possibly by myself or maybe with some help, maybe some co-creation in action. The publication scheme, my note-taking, I use Obsidian for notes, so if I can easily import and move around the show metadata, the episode metadata, and the per episode notes and whatnot, it would be interesting, I think, to publish all of the notes along with each episode and then the transcript generated after the other 24 hours a day. I believe I've said this before, my favorite East German expression, maybe from an East German engineer that I worked with. We work 24 hours in a day and then we work at night, something like that. Anyway, my very poor, his accent was better. The topic of today, though, co-creation, is something that I think most people mostly wouldn't be able to identify based on the name. I mean, it's not too far off. Co-creation, creating together, yes, sort of. But I think most people actually participate in it without really knowing it. Something to think about. So let's begin with the show notes and the summary of today's episode, which I will read to you now. Growing slowly in popularity, as in it didn't just take over last year. It's been going on for a while. Growing slowly in popularity and effectiveness. The notion that a person or company, and that's only 2, could be a group, could be whatever. Person or company can include users, customers, consumers in the design and iteration process. That means improving designs and so on, to make products and services that might actually work. Might be something to ponder here in the oasis we call Greater Vegas, the oasis in the desert. So the notion of co-creation, just I'll get to, there's a couple of links you can check out, of course, but co-creation, literally creating together. It's right there in the name, but it's not, there are different flavors, there are different styles, there are different outcomes. So that's what we'll get into. And then, the fun economy is a starting point. The fun economy kind of reigns here in Vegas because that's where the money is coming from. And most other things, the pursuit of a more scientific focus, or maybe the notion that the Greater Vegas area is to be an innovation hub, are fantastic notions. There's really not quite the how could I describe this? There's just no experience doing that. Not the same level of experience. And you cannot simply look at different cities and say, well, we can be like Silicon Valley, we can be like Hollywood, we can be like all kinds of other places. So we can focus on being a better version of Vegas. How could we do that? Well, co-creation can also happen at city scale. So we'll get there later. In the meantime, today's links. First and foremost, my shameless self-promotion. I will lead by saying you are under no obligation to pay any money, but I do use as sort of a outside hub of links and so on, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo and ko-fi.com/DanHugo, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. That's DANHUGO, no space. Find links to my other productions. We do have possibly a 5th show coming back from an extended hiatus. I think it's been about 3 years since the last episode went up, so look for some information there. And I will post an announcement to this effect on Ko-fi so I can get moving on using Ko-fi for a more effective announcing and so on. So there are two different types of sites, but they're both intend to enable sort of well, I will say this, that both Buy Me a Coffee and Ko-fi.com links occasionally, well, they appear frequently, but I come across them occasionally in using open source software tools and projects. There are a couple of plugins for Obsidian where the author includes a Buy Me a Coffee link or a Ko-fi.com link in their change notifications and the like what's new, version change and so on. So they're out there. People do use these services, so they work. People have donated enough for some coffee beans, so those are what powers projects, and we'll go from there. I do have a Wikipedia link, as is so often the case, to their article on co-creation. It's reasonable. It's not super detailed. I think co-creation has a lot of nuance. It has a lot of cultural flavorings that can happen depending on where you are pursuing a co-creation effort with your users, consumers, designers, etc. It depends on your audience, what kind of product you have, what kind of service they're offering. But under the giant umbrella of co-creation, it's a reasonable starting point. As usual, Wikipedia, start there, don't necessarily end there. There's a Harvard Business Review article, Building the Co-Creative Enterprise. So I've put a link to that. That's a little bit more dense, a little bit more information rich. And one of the authors, Venkat Ramaswamy, I think I got close. Venkat Ramaswamy. He was, if you look through the external references on the Wikipedia page, he's had a couple of mentions over the years. His name comes up frequently. So another good place to start. And then I've been referring to this lately, but I haven't really checked the number recently, but I have checked it today. The data on the LVCVA, that's the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. They have a tourism tracker. It's not great. I think they could do a slightly better job, but it is convenient. They do have some spreadsheets that you can download if you want different executive summary and different takes on different data. But tourism tracker does give you, you can select at the bottom a year to date total. So I did just that. So default, it's the month. And unfortunately, they use the column head is date, but it's the month. So they don't really make it clear unless you scroll all the way to the bottom that it's current month. User experience, if they accepted co-creation input, I would tell them that. But, well, I will get to the problem with that, not with LVCVA, but in general. So if you look at that table for year to date, so that is January to May. They do include up until May 2024. So full month of May, not really a date, more of a month. So from January to May, it's a little over 17 million people. So at about a little over 3 million a month. It's somewhere between 3.5 and 4 million people per month. So we are on track for, not that this is a competition, but I feel better knowing that when I've been using the number 40 million, if we do in fact get closer to maybe 21 million for the first half of this year, then we are essentially, that is a run rate of about 40 million people per year. So I feel better. So 40 million people, no telling whether some of those are the same. So it's not necessarily 40 million unique people, but it is a pretty reasonable volume of people. I will quote Eric Pan from Seed Studios when he was here in town for our Maker Innovator meetup during CES. That was back in January of 2024. He said, we make everything in Shenzhen, or Guangdong, really, province. But we make everything in Shenzhen, and nobody comes to see it, but you don't really make anything in Vegas, and everybody comes to Vegas. And I pointed out to him that Shenzhen's population, I was taking a guess, and he agreed, so maybe we're close. The population of Shenzhen is about 20 million people. If you're not familiar, Shenzhen is right across the water from Hong Kong, so it's on the south coast of China. very well known for manufacturing electronics products and other things. So their population is about 20 million. So I said, that's about 2 Shenzhens coming through Vegas every year. And in that perspective, it's a little bit more impressive. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. So I'm going to take a drink. A little apple cider vinegar and ginger ale. Delicious. So what is co-creation? There are a few takes on this, as I said, beginning at the Wikipedia page, at the Wikipedia article. Check out some of the external links, the HBR article. These are good starting points. The Wikipedia article page, article, breaks down co-creation in their take. And again, it's a very brief take, so it's not, it would be unfair to criticize it. They're just, it's a start. They have 4 tiers of co-creation: collaboration, which is more direct; tinkering, which is a little bit more maybe like Arduino. Arduino kind of lets people interact very directly with their products, but they're still designed and manufactured by Arduino. So they're probably kind of a mix of 1 and 2, the collaboration and tinkering. Co-designing, where you invite people to submit designs and you iterate on those selected. There's a couple of examples there, like Lego. And then submitting, where people submit ideas, but it's not really interactive. Those are very terse summaries I've just given. But essentially, those are this notion that there are 4 tiers and their descriptions is one way of looking at it. So co-creation can take several forms. Generally, very generally speaking, though, it's when you ask for somebody's opinion or input in some way, and then you act on it, and they should know you're acting on it. So when you ask for someone's opinion about a meal you're preparing for them, like you're cooking, you're kind of mid-course, you may have asked them what their menu choices were ahead of time. That's even closer. Do you like pasta? What kind of what shape of pasta? Are you gluten-free at all? Do you have to any special dietary requirements, etc.? So if you are interacting with your eventual consumer of your victuals, you may be preparing along the way. You ask them for, like, hey, does this need more salt? Does it need more something? Is it too this? Is it cooked well enough for you today? You're getting their feedback and you're acting, you're adjusting accordingly. Probably could be considered a form of co-creation. If you are into creating clothing, and you ask someone to take their measurements, you ask them to try it on, you ask for their fabric choice inputs. You may be open to anything. You may say, pick from one of these 3. There's a variety of ways to do that. Co-creation. If you test drive a car, if you're like an early test driver, an early beta tester for a car, it's in the midst of it's a new product, new design, and you are road testing, you're driving it to the limits of its usability and so on. Or maybe you have your own car and you are taking it in for repair, and the mechanic gets in. This has happened. This really does happen now and then. Mechanic gets in the car and you drive, and they say, oh, is that okay? I can hear what you're talking about. Okay, you go again. So they invite you to be a part of the repair process. So that's sort of a form of co-creation as well. You're not being handed your car back with a bill, and then you get in your car and you're like, it's still doing it. So it's a little bit more proactive. It involves a conversation or an interaction between both, if you want to say, sides of a design or repair process or an iterative design. There's essentially, if you look at it as like stuff going on inside the building where the design team is, where the mechanics are working on your car, and the people outside the building or in the waiting room, they're the ones that will ultimately be using the product, paying for it, hoping that it works. And what you do with the response to the first product launch or the feedback from updates and so on makes all the difference. Open source, open hardware, and open hardware is sort of a different thing. If you look at RISC-V, if you're bored, you can look for RISC-V. That's a Roman numeral 5, RISC-V, for some sort of modern or more attention-grabbing discussion about open hardware, open source software usually. There's Creative Commons publication of things where you're allowed per the license to change and edit. Wikipedia is a great example. The Wikimedia company owns, or the foundation, or however they're structured, they own websites and they deal with getting servers and infrastructure and software maintenance for the editing tools. They probably have in-house moderation or general legal counsel. They conduct the business of Wikipedia, but they invite their users or consumers of Wikipedia to also be editors and content creators on Wikipedia. So it's an ongoing co-creation effort. If I edit a Wikipedia page, I probably don't incur financial expense. So although I could donate money to Wikipedia, so arguably I could pay to support the product. So I'm the consumer, the customer, and they are the producer, the designer, etc. So it's a pretty good example, and that's why I say most people are reasonably familiar with co-creation. They may not know it. So open source, open hardware, they encourage a form of what we could call skilled co-creation. So Wikipedia, if you are not a botanist and you want to chime in on an article about plant respiration, if you want to talk about xylem and phloem, if you want to get down with photosynthesis, but you don't know what you're talking about, your changes may be rejected. They may be rolled back. So it's not just software and hardware for computers and technology, but these are probably the most obvious examples where people will say, a lot of people, well, I guess that's going to come back soon. A lot of people are saying that open source software is nice, but I'm not a coder, I'm not technical, I don't feel like I can contribute anything. But turns out, if you are a person using anything, software, hardware, toothbrush, whatever it is, you are suddenly sort of an expert in your use case of said thing. And if you can take the time and put in the energy and the effort to not only observe, okay, well, I have a problem. Let me see if I can describe the problem, if I can actually quantify the error or describe the sound or measure the excessive wear. You actually put a little bit of time into recording a potential issue, then you submit a very useful issue report or a problem. Like, hey, here's something I'm seeing. You don't have to be an engineer, you don't have to be a doctor, you don't have to be a lawyer. You're just an expert in your use case, and you've taken the time to submit that to people who might take action. And then it's, of course, critical that people value that and take action. I have been in a circumstance where I was using a product and I was using it per the directions, and I was running into a poorly defined error condition. So it was an electronic device with a display, and so it's an error or whatever. And it didn't make sense. So I contacted support, and they immediately assumed that I had not read any of the documentation, that I was not following the directions, that I had done something incorrectly, and it was because of my misuse of the product that I was probably running into this error. That was a little bit off-putting. So I did a tiny amount of experimenting with what ended up being a small amount of dust that had moved into a spot where you plug in a component. It was making the contact not great. So I used some alcohol, and because of the way the connection was, it was difficult to get to. So I came up with a way to essentially clean this difficult to reach contact point. From then on, zero problems. So because I was so condescended to, when I responded again, I said, hey, by the way, I found out what the problem was and I fixed it. And they said, what happened? And I said, oh, you should read your documentation. Yeah, it's a little vindictive, a little passive aggressive, but the bottom line is this: they lost my trust. They lost my desire to help them, to help me. And so this is something that can go wrong if your customer support team is not on board, if they don't understand that, we're not, you're a paid employee of a company in that case, usually. The person that contacts you with thoughts and intuitions and observations and potential solutions, they have paid. They, in fact, are contributing to your salary. It might be worth listening to them. It might be worth saying, wait a minute, hang on. First, I just want to make sure you did read this, but I want to know more about what's happening with you. So rather than saying, did you even read the documentation? You can start off by saying, hey, if you did read this and you are still seeing something new or that we didn't cover, this is an opportunity to make our product better. And this person's going to help us, and we should value that. So not always the case, but sometimes it is. And that is the difference. And that is immediately obvious when you encounter that attitude. So co-creation can be done well. And it really starts with developing a trust relationship with your customer, your consumer, so that they understand that they can actually affect change or improvement when they take the time, when they literally not even take the time, they give you their time to give feedback, useful feedback. So now there are people that might just say, this thing didn't work, and they don't really care. They're just upset. That also happens. The terms have not changed. There's this happens whenever I contact Amazon support as well. You'll get people that are like, they're just reading the script, and I'm not being paid for this. You are a support person. I'm trying to address a problem here, and I don't need attitude. I don't need to be shunned or to be condescended to, especially. So in general, co-creation can be kind of a cultural challenge on the inside, so that people understand that value proposition, that actually listening to customers. Sometimes you got to be like, yeah, okay. Did you read this? And if so, you kind of, because people just want to vent occasionally. That happens. But every once in a while, there will be someone like the example I gave, where I literally found an issue that they had not documented properly, and a method to address it. They could improve their product by including better documentation, by including a method to remove the little piece. And we're talking like, it wasn't like dust bunnies, and it was just a little bit, but it was enough to cause contact issues and device error. So the truth is out there if you're willing to listen to your consumers, and this is a form of co-creation. And the real value then comes from people who care enough to contribute, because the use of the thing, and because they use the thing. They use the thing, not the notes. They use the thing. They use the thing and they want it to be better. And they're taking the time to, because, once I fix my own problem, if I had fixed the problem before I contacted them, would I have contacted them? Now, I will say this very same company had previously also been annoying. So I would not have. I would have said, there was a problem. I fixed it. I already know that they're a pain. I already know that I don't like contacting support. So if you make support not something that happens when there's a customer upset or disappointed, but it's an interaction between customer and company, or consumer and producer. If that is a relationship that can be established. Now, I don't want to contact support every day, but if there's a circumstance where like, hey, yeah, I like this product, the company's cool, I found a problem that I can help, or hey, it would be better if you're going to update this version. And you'll see this with companies like Framework, which is a modular laptop company that's recently become very popular. They are listening to people, and they're enabling people to, if you want to look at the 4 tiers that Wikipedia had, they're enabling collaboration by publishing specifications, by enabling people to design add-on products and modules. And it appears that they're actually listening to people doing this and saying, oh, this could be something that we can incorporate into our future designs and so on. So it ends up being a relationship with the customers that they feel valued, and they feel better about paying money because you're doing the heavy lifting of manufacturing Framework. Whereas customer can say, oh, I can offer a little bit of extra here and a little thing there, and if you change this, and they may say, oh, wow, we really appreciate that, and the product improves, and they probably kick back a little free this or a bonus that, and certainly a mention and a gratitude and so on. So the loop can work, and it can work very effectively. It doesn't always have to be computers. Could very easily be tasting an item on a new menu item at a restaurant, etc. So it could take many forms. It's how you enable and encourage your consumers, and whether you listen to them and whether they know it. So how do we enable and encourage? Oftentimes a new product will garner some response, positive or negative, and it will be spread all over, sometimes social media, sometimes it'll be a review site for whatever it is. There's a lot of technology review sites. Those are they've been trendy since the moment Shockley invented a transistor. I'm sure they're like, hey, he's got solder blobs he's got cold solder joints on his test board. There's always someone wanting to render an opinion. But, reviews in general, there are various motivations behind offering reviews. The review is basically unconstrained in many cases. You can just make claims. You can go off the rails. You can make very poor assumptions. You can make outright false assumptions. Sometimes that's found out. Sometimes it becomes obvious. Other times, not so much. So these positive or negative comments may be based on reality, or maybe based on one, like, hey, maybe yours was broken because no one else has seen that. So sometimes there's a little bit of self-correction. And there are YouTube channels dedicated to unboxings and trying products and reviewing them. Some of them do a really nice job. Some of them are more for the views and the clicks and not doing a great job. Although there again, I think self-correction happens, and I've seen all manner of review sites for everything from technology to $2 kitchen gadgets. And the ones that are still around, they've been doing it for 10 years or whatever, it's because they do a good job. They do a thorough, fair, transparent, practical investigation, if you will, into a product. There's a guy who's actually based in Henderson. I've never run into him. He does best freaking reviews or something. Let me check this out. I think doing an audible here. Checking the YouTube. Freaking reviews. What? Freaking reviews. Let's check it out. Yep, it's just freaking reviews. Freaking, Freakin apostrophe, but freaking without a G. Reviews, all one word, on YouTube. I think he does a good job. So the difference between a reviewer and co-creation is that a reviewer is often offering their assessment of a product and their opinion, their summary, etc., for the audience. Their goal is to inform an audience in exchange for clicks and ad revenue and whatnot. Sometimes they do a good job and get financial reward for doing a good job. Sometimes they just want the volume, so maybe they're a little bit extreme or they're a little bit sensational. So I think the better ones are the former. But they are doing it for their viewers. If you are in a co-creation mode, he might be reviewing something, but he is feeding his reviews and experiences directly back to the companies for the products he's reviewing. Yes, his viewers may see these things, but if he's saying, okay, the company that made this $5 kitchen widget, here are the things that I found wrong, and they may say, well, here, we're going to iterate on this product and make it better, and we'll send it to you and compare, right? You've done a deep dive on this product, and you can tell you're an expert in your user experience, so you can tell us whether we've addressed the things. And they may do a product spin, and they may come out with a new version of something. So co-creation in that case is where you are talking directly to the design team or the company or the person that made a thing, whatever it is. So reviewers do some of the things that a co-creation contributor could be doing, but it's not always as effective. Why? Because anyone can write a review and post it anywhere, and if it becomes popular, maybe, but generally speaking, that information may never get back to the company or the people who could affect a change, who could improve it, who could take that information and turn it into a better product that the person that made the observation and took the time to write it out could benefit from. Maybe that person will receive a free replacement or something, right? So the value of co-creation does not start with outbursts on social media, good or bad. If they don't surface, if they don't get found, then you're literally just talking to whoever reads. This is on Reddit, this is on Twitter, anywhere, YouTube, of course. So it's a failing on their part, I think, the companies and so on, to provide the first best place to provide honest feedback. So they should provide, them, the mysterious them, they should or could provide a product feedback starting point that is not necessary. And I'll give you a food truck example, of course, that is, hey, if you find a problem with the product, and you can see this in a smattering of products, and call this number or visit this website. Here's a QR code, scan it on your phone. So I'm starting to see this a little bit more with some consumer products, and kind of seeing it with tech, but I think tech is sort of catching up. They're kind of like, hey, before you go tweeting and stuff, don't forget we have our website. So different cultural and historical and momentum behind different attitudes and so on to consider. Food truck, food trucks. I have said this to people. We're standing next to a food truck. I haven't been to a food truck in forever, by the way. They'll say, oh, I don't like this. I'm going to go write a bad Yelp review. I'm going to leave the establishment perimeter. We're 5 feet away from the food truck. The owner is in there. We're separated by some sheet metal. The owner of this business is right there. And I will almost guarantee you, I'll say 98% of the time, the owner would rather give you a free replacement or take your feedback and like, oh, okay, we're undercooking the rice, or oh, okay, this is too spicy. We should ask first, right? Because not everybody has the same sort of scale in their mouth of spiciness. So this could be a new food truck, or it could be an old. This is a small business. If you rail on them on Yelp, nobody wins. You may get some clout for being mean, but you could literally walk up and say, hey, you know what? This is a little bit spicy. And I ask for, oh, this is our fault. Or, oh, this is good to know. And I've worked on food trucks, as I may have mentioned before. So some business owners, food trucks or whatever, who value that input will take it and make their products better, make their customer experience better, and they will do better as a business. That's how it works, right? Customers who are upset or disappointed don't tell their friends to come and visit your food truck. They write bad reviews. So in that mode of co-creation, you're providing a place where the customer can come to you directly. Don't post on Yelp. I might see your Yelp review, but I can't fix it. You were standing 5 feet away. I could have fixed it right there. So if there is a place to begin that conversation in earnest, you could you could go up to the food truck and say, this place sucks, and leave. But that's not as valuable. But the fact is, there is an initial point of contact that is authoritative, right? If I post on Twitter, I may get some sort of response. I may get some sort of problem fix eventually. But if I contact the food truck owner in this case and say, hey, could I get a little bit more of the sauce? It's a little bit dry. That's a problem. And yeah, we should have more sauce available in general. We should put some squeeze bottles out. So these are about enabling your customer to feel like they are a part of that process and trusting them and them trusting you that the time that they spend, the effort that they put in to make these assessments and to provide the feedback will be taken and valued, and something will be done with it. Otherwise, why bother, right? If there is a channel for communication, then the important make or break is whether there is that trust to turn the time and effort put into it, to trust that it will be put to good use. Detailed feedback will yield some sort of result in this relationship. There will be some sort of transparency. It will be worth my time to actually go. Now, if the food truck owner is like, so, it's unlikely that person will get good reviews. It's unlikely that they'll benefit from an interested public who wants to see them succeed. And, the chips will fall where they may. does a company or a manufacturer or even a restaurant or whatever it is, whatever the case, build on these? Does it build on these feedback conversations, the direct point of contact, like the first point, primary point, right? So if you invite people to come to us, right? If you have a problem, if you have a suggestion, visit our website, visit our product portal, whatever it is. Restaurant, come to our website, call the general manager, give us your feedback, good or bad. And I see that too. I see that even printed on receipts of some restaurant chains. Here, the manager of this store is so-and-so. Here's his number or her number. Is there a general notion that the company listens, that they respond, and that they take action? So if I have a receipt from a Taco Bell, maybe, I don't know. I haven't been to Taco Bell in years either. If Taco Bell prints their store manager name and phone number on their receipts, are people going to take that seriously? Are they really going to call and say, I got a stomach ache after I ate at your restaurant? And they'll be like, mission accomplished. But do people trust that there will be some action taken? Is there enough transparency? Otherwise, it's not worth it. They'll treat it almost like fake marketing. So there are opportunities in Vegas, as I've now verified there, and I make one reference here, but I've made this reference previously in other shows and other episodes of those shows. There are about 40 million. So with so many people visiting from so many places, and by the way, the LVCVA website does have I think it's visitor origins, but visitor demographics, right? Where are they from? Strangely, I don't think there's a practical way to capture primary languages spoken. That is to say, no matter what country or point of origin you're from, you may speak a language of, your original point of origin, your birthplace or whatever. So the city of Las Vegas or the greater Vegas area tends to focus on census data, which puts English and Spanish as the top two languages. But with approximately 40 million people visiting each year, the number of languages spoken as primary, that is some ability to get around speaking English, maybe Spanish, but personal experience, I've interacted with tourists visiting from a variety of places. They just don't speak English as well as they could, or if at all. And they're trying to catch a bus, or they're trying to ask for, where's this thing? And if you venture off the strip, then the possibility of losing landmarks and so on only goes up. So there's so many people here from so many places, speaking so many languages, so many different cultural considerations, different expectations about things. It would be interesting to engage with these people directly with a new product or service and then have them try it out, whether it's while they're here or when they go back home or both, whatever, it depends. And try out these new things or new versions. Maybe you're trying out a new flavor or a new color or a new user interface or whatever it is. And then provide, of course, a path for them to give you feedback. Perhaps some sort of an incentive to not go to social media first, but to indeed provide that feedback. And I will suggest that if there is that personal connection and you make that clear, this would go for the food trucks as well. If somebody says, a food truck owner or a new product designer in this model here, if they say, hey, I'd like you to try this and I'd like you to give me feedback. I'd ask that you don't go to social media first, but just tell me what you think. And because I'm developing a new thing here, or I'm trying something out, and I'd appreciate your feedback. You are now instilling your trust in this person, and that will be reciprocated statistically. So that's especially in person. The person is here in Vegas. You can talk to them, look them in the eye and say, hey, I'd like to know what you think. I'd rather not read it on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, pick a TikTok. I'd like you to tell me so that we can improve our product, because we're in the early stages of product design. I personally think that would work well 80% plus of the time. Most of the focus initially could be on the fun economy here in Vegas. So you can focus on people who are here for one of the 5 pillars, professional sports, gaming, tourism, conventions, and entertainment. I think I got those right. So if they're here for a show, or they're here just to go gambling, or they're here to go to a party for a friend about to get married or divorced even, there are various reasons to come here, but if you can cater to those initial motivations, like, hey, I have this app idea or I have a service idea, and it would work with a lot of different people and different things, but if you can come up with a way to try it out on people who are visiting a place, whether it's visitor oriented or just, I'll give you an example. Somebody was attempting to create these are always funny, Uber for photographers. So if you're a professional, or at least you have the equipment to pretend to be a professional photographer or videographer, you're kind of a freelancer. Somebody might say, oh, I just need a photographer for like 2 hours to do whatever the case. So when I heard this, I said, well, this would be interesting in Vegas because people come here, they meet up with their friends. Maybe it's the party for the betrothed, or maybe it's people from a trade show and it's a small startup and they don't really have, but they want to catch some marketing content. They want to put it on their Instagram, whatever it is. Not everybody brings along a photographer or videographer. So the ability to be in Vegas on the Strip and say, oh, it'd be so cool if we could just call up someone and say, hey, can you just follow us on the Strip for like an hour and catch some video? And the person said, yeah, I guess. I don't think they ever did it. But not only are you possibly getting customers by doing this, but you're trying it out on a huge variety. I mean, I don't know about the numbers themselves, but a huge variety. You're getting all kinds of people visiting for all kinds of reasons who may see some value in this. So the other problematic part was that the person signed up photographers without a way to introduce it to people. So we had a bunch of photographers saying, well, nobody's contacting us. Well, they don't know about my product yet. Okay. So here, like there's a little opportunity here to engage at the resort, hotel, even casino level, where you say, hey, if anybody's looking for, or you offer some sort of a affiliate program, like, hey, if the concierge desk connects people with a service, they get 10% or whatever, right? Could be worthwhile. Could be interesting. It also feeds into the smart city notion, like, oh, new products, new ideas, novel thinking. You can find that in Vegas, not just crime and buildings being demolished. Millions of locals could also be involved. So we have 40 million people visiting, 2.3 million people visiting living in the Clark County area. That's where Vegas is, Clark County. We have the 2.3 million people who don't necessarily hang out on the Strip. They don't necessarily partake in the fun economy as frequently as visitors do. Visitors come to Vegas and they almost by default are participating in the fun economy. Those are the main reasons to visit Las Vegas, unless you know somebody here. So mostly you're here for a trade show or to gamble or whatever the case. So 2.3 million people who live here, they can participate in the same sorts of things. But the other notion about a place like Las Vegas that considers itself a smart city but doesn't really know how to do it, the people that are living here can actually chime in on things like, hey, why is it so difficult to do this, this, and this? And if the city or the county, city of Las Vegas, city of North Las Vegas, Henderson, Boulder City, there's a couple more, Mesquite, there's some smaller cities. If they're willing to listen, if there's a facility that isn't a third-party tool like See-Click-Fix, but an actual loop, a process where you invite your residents of your county or city, hey, why don't you come and participate in a co-creative planning project or a issue capture project? Like, let's identify real problems. I will give an example of this. There's a crosswalk that I use almost daily, out and about walking. It is a very major, high traffic flow, 3 lanes each direction, surface street. The walk sign, it's a ADA walk sign. So you hit the button and it starts beeping. And then when the signal says walk, there's a rhythmic beeping that gets faster at the end. Okay, that's all fine. Normally, this size of an intersection would have about a 22 second, and there's a standard for this, like the number of feet or the distance and then the number of seconds. So there's a countdown. It will often start off at 2 or 5. So it's already blinking. Don't start crossing, don't walk. By the time I'm into the second lane, and I still got another 4 lanes plus the center median to go, right? Where do I report this? So in a co-creation friendly community, town, city, county, there would be an obvious place. It would be valued. It would be something that people would do frequently, and it would be something valued at the other side in public works or planning, or the correct parks and recreation, the correct department, the correct staffers would get the information, would make an assessment, would try to address them. There's no Leslie Knope here in Vegas, as far as I'm aware. There may be, I don't know, but no one who's that nuts about being aware and doing and taking action. So if there were high-profile tools that like everybody knows, you go here. I will say, when we first started Innovate for Vegas, I heard that there were 90,000 complaints found in social media here in the greater Vegas area, city of Las Vegas, probably. So aimed at the proper city of Las Vegas boundaries, everything going on inside those boundaries. 90,000. The city of Las Vegas actually maintains a issue reporting site, and they, from what I understand, have also signed up with SeeClickFix. SeeClickFix is a third party. It manages user feedback. So here you have, okay, I want to file this crosswalk is causing me problems. Where do I even go? So discovering where to report, share information, and then the notion that one might take the time and nothing will happen is that probably is more common in a government situation. I've talked about this before. Our transit system you install a different application called Transit Watch, and you can call RTC Southern Nevada, the Regional Transit Commission. You can call them on the phone. So you don't want to, though. You install the Transit Watch app. So that's a completely separate application, separate from the scheduling and route planning and so on, which is itself 2 other applications, the Ride RTC and then the third-party transit. Well, they're all third-party transit app, which is where you actually get the real-time scheduling and updates, which is itself not great. So now we're up to 3 different applications. And so the Transit Watch app, you can submit a issue. And fun fact, they actually make it difficult to give a compliment. Same problem. So you do your thing. You say what route, what time, or whatever. It's a fairly restricted. It's not when you're doing this, you're like, I don't know if this is really a route problem or a stop problem. It was an issue with the security guard at the transit center. This bus stop always smells like urine. You take the time, you make the submission. You'll never hear back ever. And you have no idea if any problem will ever be addressed. And in some cases, it may actually be addressed, but then it goes back to the same problem, especially because people hang out at the bus stop sometimes and they, relieve themselves, and it doesn't always smell great. So there is an opportunity to make it easier for the people that do live here to interact with city operation, city function, city, town, county, and actually see change, to actually see things improve. And if this smart city that is the greater Vegas area, so all the cities that make up the greater Vegas area individually, but just the region in general. By the way, that's another little tricky thing. When you visit Las Vegas, you are almost certainly not in Las Vegas. You are in unincorporated Clark County. But even the Welcome to Las Vegas sign isn't in Las Vegas. So there's this sort of loose notion of boundaries and so on, but there could be a general facility in place to communicate with people, to share information, to make it findable, and to accept honestly offered criticism and suggestions, and then take action on them and make sure that people see the return on their time investment. Then you'll get more useful, valuable input. Unfortunately, there are certain things that don't get considered, and you can look at the travesty of the Formula One impact on small and even larger businesses that were not always in the news because there was not a facility to include people in a co-creative way in the planning and the construction and all the sorts of things that went on for the Formula One race. Is another opportunity lost, and it's been very expensive. And so you can read that. I've talked about this in previous episodes, the F1 fun economy, F1UN economy. couple of episodes back in October, I think. We'll revisit that in November when Formula One Take 2 happens in Vegas. So great opportunities for co-creation with people who are here for the race, but also people who are here living here, trying to conduct business here, the impact that the preparations and the rest of the race and the aftermath have on them individually, personally, and on their business, their customers, etc. The information is there. You just have to get it. Beyond the fun economy, there are normal things. Like I said, public transit, the rideshare services like Lyft and Uber, because there are so many people from so many places here. There was some pushback on Lyft and Uber launching when they both did. They've kind of turned into a mess here. It's been so long since I've bothered to take a Lyft, and I gave up on Uber long before that. There are new e-commerce application possibilities, new interactions with tourism-related things, with event-related. There's a residency program. There's a new attraction. There's a comedian performing. Finding these things can be tricky. People who do attempt to write applications to address this, I'm convinced, don't use co-creation because they end up being a fire hose of, like if I told you, hey, there's a comedian here in Vegas, and you said, oh, which one? And I'd say, well, here's all of the things going on in Vegas. So you go ahead and click on comedy and figure it out for yourself. This actually happens. So if you actually took an opportunity to capitalize through interaction, engagement, actual honest questions with real responses and action, people that are using such an application in Vegas may not be from Vegas. They could be offering like, hey, I was planning my visit and I used your application and I literally put it down because there was just too much and it was not helpful. It was actually, it's a phenomenon called the paradox of choice. Like if you gave me 3 comedians, or if you let me search more easily for my comedian, right? Or maybe I was looking for a comedian. I just want to find a comedian. You give me 3 suggestions. Don't give me all of them for the next 6 months that will be in Vegas. That's not as helpful. So the paradox of choice, being more attentive to, this is the kind of feedback you could get. And so you don't necessarily have to be tailoring your thing to the fun economy, but it's because people are here for the fun economy. So that's kind of the next level is, well, since you're here, what do you think about, these sunglasses? A colleague's friend, I cannot remember his name, was here so this is not even a brand new idea I'm suggesting here. They were here with some headphones. They were one of several companies that were in downtown Las Vegas on Fremont, in the downtown Fremont Street experience. You could go and try on these mock-up they were not real headphones. They were just the frame, the mock-up. It was a model. Try them on, answer some questions about comfort and fit and so on. And they would give you, I think they gave us 2, I knew the guy, so I was like, I do whatever. But he gave me 2 poker chips that were good for free drinks or free discounts somewhere on Fremont. Cool. So you get paid for your time. You get some insight into a new product. That's pretty neat. It's kind of a fun experience. It took a few minutes, although I knew, I went down to Fremont to see him, and I wish I could remember his name. I'm totally spacing on his name. Nice guy. Interesting product, but it just revalidated an idea that I had suggested to the LVGEA, the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, like now it's been 10 years ago, to connect the startup scene that was the downtown project at the time to tourism, to have people be able to at least know, oh, there's startups going on in Vegas. I thought it was all about me and giving them my money when I lose at blackjack, which it is. But the fact is, if people are here for CES, they may be interested in any sort of, consumer electronic startup type ideas, or if they're here for a fitness show or even if they're in professional sports or if they're in amateur sports. If you're here in town for sports, you may be interested in some of the health and wellness and exercise training, innovation happening here. It's not quite as exciting as the Sphere or tearing down the Tropicana to build a kooky baseball stadium, but these are things that are happening here. So if you're in Vegas, you may as well be able to discover them and then be involved in a interactive co-creation loop. Maybe that might be kind of fun. We don't really have the facilities to enable that though yet. Remember, this is impresarios. Uh, so there are 40 million people, an opportunity to talk to people, to interact and engage with them, whether it's in room, like if you have I spoke to someone who has a new kind of a pour over coffee device, and they said, oh, it's really aimed at hotels. So are you connecting with the hotels? Yeah, we have some really good connections. I don't know if that will ever see the light of day, but if you could actually make the connections with the hotels, or even better, if the connections with the hotels have already been made, and then you come into Vegas and say, I would really like to place this product in some of the upper end hotel rooms, but also get feedback from people who try it out. That's the infrastructure that should already be in place so that the same wheel is not being reinvented. This could also apply to like AI tools and applications that are being built for anything from translating languages. Remember, a lot of people here visiting don't speak English or Spanish, and I believe Tagalog is number 3. So maybe it's assisting a pedestrian tourist, wandering around a new place, Las Vegas or anywhere. Maybe it's AI tools that are concerned with your diet. Maybe you're going to eat some unusual foods that you don't normally eat when you visit the various restaurant choices on the strip. Maybe those e-commerce applications could help with currency. Like I don't know exactly what this should cost comparatively. Am I spending too much money? I'm just winging it here, but there are so many possibilities that people from other places, and by the way, any Gen Xers out there, maybe Gen Y a little bit. Remember when you'd walk around in a shopping mall and someone with a clipboard would come up to you and say, hey, do you have a few minutes? And you might even get paid for your time to answer some focus group questions or survey questions. So this takes that to the next level. But hey, you're in Vegas. Would you be interested in trying out, not a timeshare pitch, those are bogus, but would you like to try this new product, give us some feedback, and then you get a free month or a free year, or whatever, of using it, or whatever, some sort of valuation of that time and honest effort feedback. Totally plausible. And I've talked to enough people about this that on the off chance that I were pursuing this as another idea, totally viable. I might even have a name for it already. A local information sharing platform actually figures into this notion, by the way. The idea is to help people discover that any of these even exists, almost as if by design. I happen to be working on a local information sharing platform. But there is another thing, not to mention all the innovation of Vegas Foundation efforts in general. So I will, by way of example of the other thing, I will talk about Innovate for Vegas very briefly. Local innovators they're too busy, maybe. I don't know. Not showing up in any numbers at all. So a confluence of events with some other Code for America, their brigade program being canceled, a lot of people around the country being sort of disenfranchised. They want to work on projects, but now the top-down infrastructure has been removed. So, and then here we don't have people that want to participate. So I said, hey, wouldn't it be interesting if we could connect with those people without a formal infrastructure like Code for America, but just not quite a Discord server, but hey, let's make sure that you can be discovered, and that if you're interested in communicating and then maybe collaborating on projects. For example, we have our My Muni project at Innovate for Vegas Foundation, My Muni and Welcome. My Muni is for people who live here. Welcome is for people visiting. It's almost like it's by design. So if you would like to work on these projects, nothing about these projects is Vegas centric. It's about people living in a place. So the idea is to do something different than the usual WordPress style ad laden local news portal, which is usually focused on what gets clicks. And, it's not really utilitarian so much as a necessary evil. So let's do something where we can try it out on the people visiting here. They might say, oh, let me see what's going on here. Oh, look, this does it better. This platform. They don't use that word, but that's what it is. Platform to build city-centric projects. And so if we can enable people to try it from different places, then the volunteers who work on the open source project parts of it from different places might say, oh, we could use that here in our city, and people from that city might be in Vegas experiencing it, right? So it's a way to engage with people from different places with new ideas. And the nature of this platform being online would sort of have a built-in notion of a co-creation feedback model. So you can actually introduce people to proactive co-creation so that their feedback and input could be taken seriously and shown, oh, we did this, or we took this idea and ran with it, or you and 10 other people had similar ideas and here's what we're doing with it. So a little bit of transparency. And if everything is done open source, then everybody that we work with and all collaborators could benefit from this. So the people that are providing their feedback in a co-creation environment are actually having impact on a lot of people. And we can actually opt in if they want. We can actually tell people, hey, because of these 25 people over the last month who had suggestions, we've added these things to our project, and that could ripple across to other cities and other locations. I know it's a lot of blue sky, but it is one way to approach information sharing at city scale, but also taking advantage of a lot of tourism. Not every city around the country has this volume of tourism. The fun economy is possibly unique to Vegas and possibly trademarked if it's pending right now from the UNLV Office of Economic Development. So the model then is to have a direct path from innovative ideas, mostly software development for now, to take ideas and incorporate them and integrate them in with full attribution, of course, into a platform that would have an opportunity to be seen by 40 million people visiting every year. Whether they all will remains to be seen. But this is one way to take advantage of. Sounds bad, but it's to leverage or to make use of or to engage with all these visitors and to hopefully make something with it, make that feedback valuable. A platform that makes finding information its focus is the idea here, rather than delivering advertising. It sounds crazy, but it's really what a smart city should be. If we make our smart city smarter, it might be easier to get around. It might be easier to find comedians. It might be easier to find where should we go for dinner tonight. Focus not on let us give you all of the information in a fire hose, but let us help you figure out what you want to do in the city you're visiting. Or even if you live here, by the way, if you live in Vegas, it's not really necessarily easier to find like the latest restaurant or the latest ice cream shop or whatever. There's advertisements and there's social media and there's announcements on like Eater and so on, but it's not necessarily like, hey, let's find the newest ice cream shop. It's sort of that easy, but it's not necessarily that easy because there's a lot of noise that goes with that. So better ways of doing this, but you can still incorporate content creation and local insights and so on. Even visitors who come here. A lot of people visit Vegas and they do a whole, I'm a visitor or a tourist in Vegas and here's my YouTube channel of everything I do here. And they come here multiple times per year. So interacting with those people who are proactive themselves, integrating what they're doing into other information available, et cetera, et cetera. There's all kinds of ideas on the table. By including other people, including, like, for example, we may want to co-create with content creators. We may say, hey, Vegas Phil, or hey, what's her name? Norma. Hey, Norma, Vegas Phil, the Not Leaving Las Vegas guy, Jacob's Life in Vegas, Ruby, Vegas Local. There's just tons. I mean, I've scratched the surface. As content creators, would you like to be a part of this platform idea to connect with people who live here and people who visit, to make it easier to discover, find, understand, navigate? They may be interested. So it's simple, by the way. Simple information sharing is super easy. Snap of the fingers, done deal, no problem. Or more likely, it would be made better, and the parts that appear difficult could be made to appear easier or simple if you actually capture feedback from your intended audience. So discovery of local and outside innovation in particular, whether entrepreneurial or otherwise. It could be a restaurant that has a new menu. So they're already, it's an entrepreneur started a restaurant, but today they're being innovative on their menu. Is that an entrepreneurial innovation? Sort of, but You're an ongoing concern. So hence the difference. So sometimes it's something completely novel, but sometimes it's like we want to try out a new version, a new idea. It can be a challenge to try to be discovered, to be found in a sea of restaurants and bars and ice cream shops and whatnot, and not a lot of attention, not a lot of spotlight on the innovation in the greater Vegas area that isn't focused on eating and drinking and fun economy in general. There are people doing interesting things here. You just don't necessarily hear about them all the time. So discovery of that and being able to connect and be proactively interested and engaged. And I will tell one final story. Actually, I'll tell two final stories. One Vegas and one from from high school. But people who are here for a convention or a show are generally not here to try out products and services, are not. So, but they may be interested if they knew about it or if they are introduced in the right context. So there was a cohort of generator entrepreneurs here in Vegas. One person, Jeffrey something, I think, nice guy, came down, not tech at all, making collagen infused tea beverages, cold tea drinks, based in Toronto. We had a video call. I was in the entrepreneur support organization, Entrepreneur Swarm, I think it was, Mentor Swarm. That's what it was. So I had a Zoom call with him, and he said, yeah, here's what I'm doing. And I said, okay, let me guess. You're going to come to Vegas with cases and cases of bottles of this infused tea. You're going to walk up and down the strip, drop them off as samples at the spas and the various resorts, and then you're going to let the orders roll in. And he's like, pretty much. And that's exactly what happened. He essentially sold out of all of his near-term production and was switching from glass bottles to metal cans so that he could ship more product and it was easier to package and so on. So when people are here in Vegas and they're chilling in the spa or the fun economy, and spa collagen infused tea isn't a direct connection, it's like a second order. But he was able to make the most of being able to engage people from all over the place. And guess what? They go home. Now they're back in Iowa or Florida or in North Carolina or Washington State, wherever they are. And now they're ordering products to be delivered to them there, and they're telling their friends, and the list goes on and on. So nothing really too outlandish. It's just how engagement with a customer base can work, especially when those customers are from far and wide. I'll tell the final story after this. The discovery challenge is real, though, being discovered, having any idea that something like this infused tea was available in the city, while he took advantage of the people in the spa being his target audience, so kind of inbound marketing. But having people know that there is a startup doing a thing that they might be interested in is a challenge, just like finding the ice cream shop or the comedian. So aiding in discovery and making those connections is part of the challenge, and that's part of what the information sharing platform is about. And it's also part of what the other thing I'm working on is about. So you'll have to stay tuned to see how all this unfolds. And I will close with one of the stories that actually inspired me to even think about this. And again, what I'm proposing here is not rocket science. It's opportunistic engagement with potential customer base. Right? Potential users, enticing them to give honest feedback and to have an ongoing sort of co-creation. Co-creation is a newer word, but newer term. When I was a sophomore in high school. Yeah, sophomore in high school. So like a couple years ago. My teacher of the year, Terry Fields, was, before a teacher, she was writing teen romance novels. And so she told us the story. She said, I didn't have a lot of money. I was getting my teaching credentials in school and whatnot. So she was writing these romance novels. So the first time she wrote the romance novel, the first edition or the first book in the series, whatever it was, the first one, or first one with this publisher, either way, she said, I got a call from my publisher and they wanted me to do a survey of my readership, my demographic, my target audience. And they wanted to be pretty big. It wasn't like people in my neighborhood. They wanted to get a nice cross-section of a national reader base, right? Now, at the time, I really didn't think about why would the publisher want to do this? But I have no idea what the nature of the relationship with their authors, and maybe it was a small gig because it was first outing. Either way, I do trust that it was a true story though. She was pretty credible. So living in Phoenix, her initial thought was, I can't afford it. Can't do this. This is too much, too expensive, too big. And then it occurred to her. So she drove to Anaheim and got one ticket to Disneyland. Guess what? Her target audience was waiting in line for rides. All she had to do was walk up to a parent and say, "Hey, can I ask your pretty much young daughter, but can I ask your child a questions?" And she went on and got all the data she needed from a huge cross-country national reader base in the space of a day. I don't know if it was a day or 2 days, but it was, pretty much the cost of admission to Disneyland and some shoe leather, as they say. So the ability to leverage the inbound or opportunistic, we're already here. The people are here. They want to be here for a related reason, or a directly related, as in fun economy and a fun economy oriented idea, or they happen to be here for the fun economy and at the same time, a pour over coffee machine I can try out in my hotel room. That's kind of cool. These opportunities are what I would consider low-hanging fruit, and the fact that it isn't not to the point where it becomes irritating, because that's eventually what happens with all things. But I'm really surprised that this isn't built into the interface, the innovation and entrepreneurialism interface for the city. I'm a small business. Can I interact with the tourism base for a product launch? That should just be, yes, we have an app for that, or here's the contact person with the Office of Economic Development who works on that, etc. Right? And I've asked these people, they don't have that. So opportunity. Don't forget to check out buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, ko-fi.com, kofi.com/DanHugo, DANHUGO. And if you're in Vegas and you want to try out any of my product ideas, look me up. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for more.